Welcome to Music Matters Podcast with Daryl Craig Harris, talking about all things music with celebrities, artists, music business insiders, and more.
Rob McNelley, how you doing from Nashville?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm just was checking out your music this morning and on the old Spotify, and I heard checked out your newest single, "Right Back at You," or "Right Back to You," I should say.
Yeah.
And really cool. Like it's kind of Americana rock. Or how would you categorize it?
That's what I would call it. I mean, if growing up, it would have been just called probably rock.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we have nowhere to go now, if so yeah, that's what I would call it. That's yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And you've got another single coming out in August. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. Yes, Daryl. Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like it's kind of a single driven world these days, right?
Yeah, I mean, especially for an indie artist too. I mean, you've got to kind of prolong your promotional uh leverage over the time of releasing like an EP or something, yeah,
Yeah. I
I
think,
kind
yeah,
of
it
dig
seems.
that.
Yeah, it seems like the album days. I don't want to say that it's dead, but it's definitely it's changed from when we were young, and maybe I might be older than you. I don't know. But
Well, I grew up on albums, and yeah, I miss that format a lot. I hope that eventually that swings back around, because I think it's much more immersive, you know.
yeah, you kind of get the full fleshed out story, maybe. Tell
Yeah.
me about how you. I know a little bit about your background. So you're originally from Ohio,
Hmm.
and your father was a musician, right?
Yes, correct. Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
tell me about that growing up and with him and music in the house. How was that for you?
Well, it was cool. It kind of normalized the lifestyle. So I didn't have to go through telling my parents I wasn't going to go to college. You know,
Right.
I mean that it was great. There were musicians in and out of the house all the time. My dad was always writing songs, and so I was around at least some version of the creative process, and just kind of the kind of oddball characters that gravitate to this line of work, you know. So it made sense to me. I didn't know that that wasn't going on in other houses, other dads weren't doing this,
Right. It
but
just seems normal, right?
yeah, I grew up and music was always on, or people were playing it, or people were writing it, or whatever, So it was something that fascinated me from an early age.
Was your first passion songwriting or guitar playing? What kind of grabbed you first?
Probably songwriting. I just wanted to play guitar good enough to know enough chords to write songs,
Yeah.
you know. And then at some point I got the guitar bug as well. And that's when I kind of had this dual, parallel roads going somewhere.
Right.
So,
Yeah. It kind
yeah.
of it kind of grabs you.
Yeah, it does. It does. Do you play?
Yeah, I actually started on guitar, and I've been a bass player for many years. I was Circus Is Leaving and a bunch of
Okay.
a bunch of. I used to do like Gary Puckett and Frankie Avalon, a lot of those guys. Who kind I kind of What was cool about them was even though they were oldies, they always worked, which helped.
That's cool. Yeah.
But
That's awesome.
yeah, and then you have. I mean, there's a lot with you because you're. I think it's 3 times Guitarist of the Year ACMs, right?
Well, yeah, I just won the my fourth one this
Yeah,
year.
awesome.
Like a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah, CMA Musician of the Year nominated.
Yeah, I've been
That's
nominated.
yeah, that's a huge accomplishment in a town like Nashville because you got a lot of great players. How did you end up coming to Nashville? What was the kind of the reason for that?
Well, I was making a living in Columbus, Ohio, playing music, but it was all, there's not a music business there. So it like you can play clubs, you can be in all kinds of bands, you can plenty of great musicians to play with up there. But I don't know. I just felt like while I was still young enough to do it, I just wanted to get somewhere where there were maybe more opportunities to make it even bigger impact musically, or make a better living, financially speaking,
Right. Yeah. And it's hard to, there's only a couple places where you can make a living as a songwriter too, as well. Right.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. And I haven't really made my living writing songs, but I'm close to it, and it's something I've kept doing, and it's why I'm putting out music now.
Right.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have seen movies like The Wrecking Crew and
Hmm.
those kind of things. And you kind of have, you've sort of lived that life because not only as a session guy, but also as a live player. And
Yeah.
how did you get into, what was your first kind of really good gig in Nashville where you thought, okay, now something's happening? What was the kind of the first few gigs for that?
Well, I could point to a couple different ones. The first big opportunity that I felt like I really got was playing with Winona Judd. I got that gig for a little while.
Awesome.
That was cool because I mean I knew that it was something that people knew about, you know.
Right.
But really I feel like shortly after that I started playing in Delbert McClinton's band. And that musically was the right fit. Um, I had all kinds of gigs leading up to that, but for the most part, I didn't always feel like I was uh, the best fit for like my most passionate kind of music.
Yeah. You just kind of make it
Um,
work and it's a gig.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they were all great and great people, and the music was really all great, and all that. It just Delbert fit. That was the first time where I felt like the two things came together, where I was making uh good money, or at least enough money to, pay for my life. And
Right.
but also musically speaking, I really felt at home playing in his band, and I learned so much. I was there for 8 years.
Wow. Yeah. And I mean, Delbert's very well respected musically too. Like, well, I mean,
Yeah.
Winona is too. And there's
Yeah.
so many hits and she's always
Oh
had
yeah.
a great band. But
She's
Delbert's he's got a special lane.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the lane that I always feel like, he's kind of in between all the cracks, which is what became Americana music.
Yeah.
Um, and that's how I feel I am, and that's probably why I also gravitate to session work, because it's something different every day.
Right. What's sort of your preference? Because a lot of it's funny, a lot of the session guys, as I'm sure you know this, a lot of them just really don't go on the road because
Yeah.
they get out of that loop. So how have you managed to kind of walk that tightrope and make it work?
Well, you mean as far as like staying in town versus road work?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Well, mostly I do stay in town because once my session career, well, I should say Delbert started slowing down a little bit, and that left me in town more. So I
Gotcha.
would be in town like Monday through Wednesday or Thursday, and people just started asking me to do sessions. I wasn't trying to do that. I just had more time to do it.
Yeah.
And they thought, and at the time, I think they just thought it was cool to bring in somebody that uh, played with like I would hear that a lot. You play with Delbert. We think that's really cool. Like think of it like what would you do?
Right.
That's more along those lines. So that helped me get into the scene a little bit. And then and then once my gig there fizzled out, I was just doing session work full time.
Hmm.
And I didn't go on the road again until Bob Seger came along and asked me to, join a tour of his, and ended up doing 3 different tours with him. But other than that, I do stay in town. It has to be something that really, like a Bob Seger or something like that
Yeah,
to make.
it's hard to turn down Bob's gig.
Well, yeah, it is, and I wouldn't, that was a whole nother great experience. But for the most part, I do stay in town. I don't know. A lot of it comes down to financial reasons.
Right.
Something can really make it worth your while to not be in town and risk losing some session work over, then you can go do it.
Right. And then also it gives you a chance, like you said, to kind of work on your songwriting, work on your own stuff. It's a
Yeah,
little hard to do that on the road because you're so busy and you're
yeah,
always hopping on and off a bus, right?
yeah. You think you're going to get all this stuff done, and you have the downtime to do it, but you're never alone.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
you get tired too. I know
yeah,
it's
you get tired,
yeah, you want to. And so do you have a family there? Are you married? Do you have kids and all that?
I live with my girlfriend, and yes, I have a daughter here. And
Awesome.
that's
Yeah.
another reason that it's nice to stay in town.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, it's nice to have that option. And it's
Yeah,
funny because Nashville, a lot of people outside of Nashville, they kind of think that like Brent Mason plays guitar on everybody's record, but that's
yeah,
actually not. It's not true, and you can't physically do that anyway. So it's nice to
yeah.
be able to get worked into that scene. Was it something that you felt like was a hard nut to crack, or it just kind of it was really organic for you?
Well, for me, it was organic, but it is a hard nut to crack. And probably what made it easier for me mentally was that, like I said, I wasn't trying to become a session player. Other people just started asking me to do it when they would see me play out in the clubs, and stuff. And I was meeting so many songwriters, and they just started asking me to do it. Now, if I moved to town trying to be a session player, that could have been a frustrating process because it takes a long time to bust into the scene because there's so many things about it that you have to overcome. People have to get to know you. They have to be comfortable with you. They have to,
They have to like you.
there's a lot of, yeah, they have to like you. There's a lot on the line before you even pick up your instrument and play, you
Right.
know. So it takes a while. I mean, I was here a good 10, no, maybe close to, well, I shouldn't say that. I was here close to probably about 8 years into moving to Nashville is when I first started like doing sessions actively. And
Yeah.
so it
Well,
just,
in Nashville's, I mean, there's a lot. It's fun to walk down on Broadway and you see all the guys banging away at the clubs, and
yeah,
that can be a hard road. But if you really love music and you really want to play a lot, there's an opportunity, and that doesn't exist everywhere these days.
exactly. Exactly. And I mean, really, it's not, none of this is for the faint of heart. I mean, you're in a town, like you said, where everybody can play on every instrument. There are so
Exactly.
many great options. And you gotta love doing this enough to stick all that out and be there when it's still be standing after the beatings, I mean,
Exactly.
that's really what it comes down to sometimes.
Yeah, I've always said that too. Like a lot of times, it's really the last man standing
Yeah,
that gets the worm. I guess I don't know.
yeah. It's like
Yeah.
being a telemarketer, you're calling 5,000 people, but only two of them want what you're selling.
That's exactly right. You could be the best widget maker in the world, but if nobody's buying widgets, um,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. So you're so on the songwriting front and doing the singles and that kind of thing. What really have you always been releasing, or is that something that's kind of a newer thing for you to get your own stuff out there?
Well, I've not always been releasing, but I've always been recording. You can see behind me, this is my studio. This is you're
Yeah.
seeing, the console is back here behind the
This
computer
is my
screen.
fake. This is my fake studio.
Okay, yeah, see, I mean, that looks amazing.
It's funny. I was talking to Rodney from Fame down in Muscle Shoals, and he was in his studio B, and he goes, "Man, your studio is nice." I said, "Yeah, it's fake."
Oh, that's so funny because I was going to ask you about it. I was like, "Dang, man, you got some killer gear." Yeah. So I mean, I've had a studio for several years now, and access to world-class studios through all the connections I have here. But so I've always been recording, and I'll get. I just finally realized that I have so much stuff that I need to start putting out. So that's what's happening. I've been so busy in session world that you can just get sidetracked, and forget
Yeah,
what you've got on the hard drives.
yeah. You're kind of nose to the grindstone working, and yeah, I'm kind of the same thing for me. Like you have all this stuff you want to do, and you go, well, I've only got so many years to get everything done.
Yeah. Really, it's the people I hire, the people in my band when I play out, the people that play on this stuff, or the engineers that work on it or mix it or whatever. They'll bug me, like, when are you going to put this out? Are you ever going to put this out? We worked on this, and and so that's what kind of gets me like to go back and like, well, yeah, I need to set aside time and like go through and listen to this and figure out a plan, and then another 2 months goes by, and then another,
Right.
and then here comes another project. Oh, okay, after I get through this, I'll do that. And you just have to put your foot down and finally go, enough already. It's
Yeah.
time to, why did I do all this if I'm not going to share it? And so that's what's happening, and I'm excited.
Well, it's great, and it's great to for people to hear and see a different side of you. I guess it's and something that's really close to your heart
Yeah.
versus like I mean, we all have to work, and you like you say, if you're fortunate enough to find a gig that pays, but it's also close to your heart, that's the best of all worlds. And it's not always easy to find that, right?
No, it's not. I mean, yeah, I mean, like I said, I've enjoyed everything I've ever done. I've found something about it to really enjoy.
Yeah.
But there are definitely those things. I mean, like,
Yeah, we
like,
know.
yeah, I mean, there are those times where yeah, you're making money, and you're, doing the best thing you can for their music and all that, but it's maybe not necessarily something you would always go listen to or whatever.
Right. Yeah. That's okay. Yeah. I think that's the best way to be. Find the light in whatever you're doing.
Yeah,
And like you said, plus if you got good people, then and it's fun to play with good musicians, and it doesn't really matter what the music is almost.
yeah, yeah.
So tell me about like in terms of, you've kind of lived that whole world from songwriter, session guy, live guy. What's some of your advice for people, not only that would come to Nashville, but just young musicians and songwriters in general? What's some of the key points that you've sort of learned that you'd like to share?
Well, let's see. I get to ask this all the time from young players moving to town or thinking about moving to Nashville. And I've lived so many lives as far as like the way this all happens. The playbook has changed so many times since when I started. So I don't know how to tell people like do this to get started. All I can say is with I was doing this before there was really the internet options of recording, or uh the technology that we have now, to Pro
Right.
Tools, all that stuff. Um and so I think the common denominator through all of it is just show up and play. Just show up and play. You don't have to work anything. You shouldn't have to work an angle if you can show up with a good attitude, be easy to work with, and always be consistently giving results where everybody in that room is happy with what you're doing. And if they're not, go figure that part out. You will
Right.
figure that out. There's so much stuff about this that you can't possibly know until you're thrown into the position anyway. So the one thing, the things you can control are your commitment to being a positive force, and being easy to work with, and trying and show that you care about this as much as they do. And if you do those things, the playing side should take care of itself. And that's what I would say. I mean, you know, it
Yeah, and I think it's really important for young guys, especially, to understand that it's not enough to be a good player. It's
yeah,
there's so much more, right? The attitude.
exactly.
Talk about that in particular with the attitude and how important that is.
Yeah, yeah. Well, okay, when it comes to session playing, the thing that you always have to, I came up being in bands. I was in a band. I wrote the songs for the bands. I was the guy in the band,
Yeah.
put the band together a lot of times, or that was the singer or whatever. And it's a completely different mentality. And so many people move here from their hometown where that's probably what they did too, was playing bands. Well, if you want to be a session musician, you're not in a band. You're a hired gun. You are there to do everything they're asking you to do the best you can, and inflect some style into it where you can. But that's that's the good attitude part. A lot of times you're going to come up with great ideas that your band back home would have loved.
Right.
But this artist on this record in this format of music today isn't coming from that place.
Right.
You know?
Or the producer who's actually paying your check, right?
Yeah. And let's say like when I was, when I was getting into session world, like I can't tell you how many times styles of guitar playing that I completely did not value or like or ever work on would get asked of me to do. Hey, can you get this sound from X and X record but play this part that's like this band, and you hate both of those things. So guess what?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, the answer is yes, I can. And you have to not just mean it, you have to know how to do it. So you end up having the greatest lesson I've learned over and over again is to not discount any form of music or anything out there that it all is going to show up somewhere on a session if you do this enough.
If you get it to a high level. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. You might be end up playing with David Foster and you're sitting there going, how did this happen?
Well, and what if you are in the room with David Foster, one of the biggest geniuses of pop music of all time? Like, you got to be able to hang with that. You can't just bullshit your way through it. You got to hang with it, Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
that's so important.
Yeah. So having an attitude about any of that is just going to get in your way. You're going to be not thinking the right thoughts that you need to be thinking,
Yeah. You got to get out of, sometimes you have to get out of your own way.
I've stumbled over myself thousands of times.
Oh yeah, as we all have. How can people find you? I'm obviously you're on Spotify, Rob McNelley. You can find that under artists, and I already searched that this morning. But how can people find you? You have a website, social media, all that stuff?
Well, there is a website, but honestly, the best way to find me is social media, Instagram, Facebook. That's where I'm more active, and that's what's more up to date and keeps everybody in the loop with what's happening.
Awesome. Yeah, and they can ask questions or whatever.
Yeah.
What's your just to go over a little bit? What's your favorite gear? Like, what are your plan? Is it a Telly? You kind of assume that for Nashville, but
yeah, Tellys are in my life for sure. And I gravitate to that a lot. Not just for country music, but for all kinds of styles. It's such a great basic platform. But that's the thing about session playing is I have several guitars because you need several guitars. So
right.
When I play with my band, I'm usually playing either a Les Paul with P90s or
nice.
or a Telly. I kind of like the 2 pickup platform. It's simple and so when I'm most me, it's something like that,
Yeah, it just sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm up there singing. I can't have a bunch of stuff I need to be on control of at all times. Now, if I'm playing behind somebody else, I'll play a Strat. I'll play whatever,
Yeah.
All I have to do is play guitar. But if I'm up there trying to remember words and I'm trying to sing,
like, I just want something that works.
I just need something that nothing is in my way at any time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, everybody, please check out Rob McNelley's latest single, Right Back to You. And also the new one's coming out in August. I think it's August 2nd. Circus Is Leaving Town.
Yeah.
It's great to chat with you. I have a real big love for Nashville and that whole scene. A lot of Dave Pomeroy, all these different guys that we all know. Really great people, great folks down there, great food.
Yeah.
Barbecue, which I personally love. But awesome, Rob. It's great to get a chance to chat with you. And hopefully we'll if you get out to Vegas, please let me know. Maybe we can meet up for lunch or something.
That'd be awesome. That'd be great.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Thank you so much, and have a great day.
Thank you too, Daryl.
Thanks for joining us, and please consider subscribing to our podcast and follow us on our social media pages for guest announcements.